We are live. Okay, hi
We
everyone.
are.
So welcome to the course three, out for undergrad technology course review. So this actually isn't a course review. It's actually going to be more of a supplement to answer any of your questions that you submitted in. For those who are watching us live, feel free to uh, ask any questions in the comment section below, and you will be able to join. Let's see. Sorry about that. See, it sounds like someone's trying to add us right now, actually. Let's see. Okay, well, I guess we could just start by introducing ourselves.
Great. Yeah, and also if you're having trouble joining, if you're having trouble listening, feel free to shoot us an email, and we'll try to help you while we're talking, or if you can comment on this. We're happy to help you get involved as much as possible. Do you want me to start? I'll introduce myself. Yeah?
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, great. So, hi, my name is Mike Winston. I am the engagement director for the technology track of the university program. A little background on myself: I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 2011. I was in Wharton Business School. Following graduation, I started at Deloitte Consulting. I worked in consulting for 3 years. I recently, just a couple months ago, left. I now work at Yelp. I'm an associate on their biz ops and strategy team. So I can speak to business and the technology sides, but obviously here we're focusing on technology. And just personally, I'm from Houston, Texas originally. I now live in San Francisco. And yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this. Tim, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm Tim. I have been helping out with Out for Undergrad for about, I believe, 4 years. I actually attended OUBC a while ago and was a campus ambassador there for Cornell. And then I stayed involved and helped start Out for Undergrad Tech. Our first was at Facebook, and now this year we're having it at Twitter. So I am actually based in San Francisco. I do a lot of freelance work around recruiting and helping a lot of university recruiting programs around the Bay Area, and now a few in Chicago. So for anyone who's interested in kind of recruiting specific questions, then I'm the kind of person to go to. And I'm actually currently in New York City right now, but I am based out of San Francisco, if I didn't mention that before.
Hi, I'm Tobin. I am genderqueer and like gender neutral pronouns. I graduated from the University of Maryland in 2012 with a bachelor's in computer science. Then I went and worked for Microsoft for a year and a half and decided to leave. And now I'm about to start grad school at the University of Washington studying human-computer interaction and design, which is super exciting. And I'm based in Seattle.
Awesome. Like I mentioned before, this isn't supposed to be a review of the slides or the course material. It's more of a supplement. To give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to first talk about informational interviews. Any questions around informational interviews, and kind of give more examples of how effective informational interviews are, and go over the Excel doc that we sent out earlier today, kind of just like the worksheet that you could use in order to complete informational interviews. So Tobin, can you kind of give examples of maybe in the past where you've been the person who's, people have interviewed you, and kind of just, was curious about your background, or if you were just going and doing informational interviews and context there.
Yeah, so I didn't do too many informational interviews when I was an undergraduate. I did one for my undergraduate research project in the Human-Computer Interaction Lab in college. So I was trying to find a team that I wanted to do research with, and so we basically were asking each other questions about what we wanted to do, what was this project, sort of things like that. And then I did a couple informational interviews when I was at Microsoft, and I was shopping for other teams to work on. And so they had a nice system set up so you could search job listings and then ask for an interview via email. And so that was like a lot of the same, and it was a lot of really trying to figure out if we were a good match for each other. It's very much like dating, where you're trying to figure out if you're compatible with each other, and if your goals align. So I definitely think it's a lifelong skill and thing you're going to have to do, and they're really useful.
Cool. So I guess I could talk a little bit about my experience with informational interviews. As you mentioned, the course, informational interviews are not a way to kind of necessarily find a job. It's more of like an exploration tool that they use, and you'd be surprised that just by exploring and asking the right questions and keeping up with understanding a little bit more about industries that you're not currently a part of, it can actually land you some you can find out about some pretty interesting opportunities. The big thing that I've kind of noticed for informational interviews for most useful for students actually is that when I was a university recruiter at Facebook and at Adipar in the past, I've actually traveled to a lot of different campuses. Whether or not you believe it or not, every campus is in its kind of own bubble of what students what's like the cool thing to do, right? Like to go into. So like at Stanford, it probably is really cool to drop out and start your own company, and entrepreneurship and startups are really cool. Penn, it's very, very much so geared towards consulting and investment banking. Mike, I don't know if you agree, but it much is
yeah, it is.
Like a big thing. You look up to people who are kind of going to those industries, and you kind of hear from your friends all about the industry that's in your bubble, right? So the big thing about these informational interviews are actually a way to find out about things that you don't know about, and find out about things that you're interested in, just as very casual questions. Not, hey, I'm interested in getting a job at your company, can you help me out? It's very much so, hey, like really, can I just have 10 minutes of your time? Like, can we sit down or chat over the phone for 15 minutes and let me just like pick your brain and understand like how you got to where you are, because that's just, and everything is approached as like a learning opportunity. So so yeah, informational interviews, I think if it's used as an exploration tool, which they're supposed to be, can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, and I completely echo that. So as I was saying before, I was in consulting for a few years, and I knew that I wanted to move into tech. But as Tim was getting at Penn, everyone goes into consulting or finance for the most part. I mean, there are exceptions, but that's what most people do. And so my bubble didn't really have that many people in technology, at least from school. And so I did. I just kind of met up with some friends or friends of friends and asked them questions. I have a friend who's an engineering manager at Facebook, and so I would ask him just to explain computer science in general to me, because I was a finance and management major and anthropology minor. I had no idea what to talk about with computer science. So it really is a great opportunity to just ask people casual questions and try to learn something, and you might find out about opportunities that you never even considered before.
Right. So I don't think there's a way to, there might be a way to pull up the sheet here, but I'm not going to attempt. But we did send out an Excel sheet earlier today in the attachment of kind of the reminder of this Hangout. And so that tool, we created that Excel sheet for your reference. You kind of listed example interviews and what you would kind of ask. We have the example questions. And it's really just supposed to be an ongoing, continuous sheet for you to have throughout your career. And it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't have to end at college. Like once you get a full-time job, you have those contacts that you connected with, spoke to, and you have notes for the rest of whenever, if you want to switch industries, you might be able to look back in your sheet that you're like, oh, hey, like I remember, junior year, I talked to someone who was in that industry or knew someone who was in that industry or company maybe, that you want to learn more about. So it is a very helpful tool that not many people actually do, or not many students actually think about, because there is a lot of pressure. We totally understand that it's always about, getting the next internship. It's always about getting the job. It's always about getting interviews. So we do understand that it's something that does take some side work to do, but it's something that is very rewarding and can continue on for the rest of, not just for the rest of your career, I guess, not just during college. Okay, so I think we touched upon that. Let's see if we have any questions real quick on the Google Hangout page. So yes, if you just joined us, there are the Google Hangout sheet. There is an area where you could it says say something on there. If you ask a question through there, we'll be checking for any questions. In the meantime, it looks like we're good.
Cool.
Okay. So now we're going to transition over to talking about our experiences, specifically with LGBT organizations on campus, specifically pre-professional organizations. So some schools have this, some schools don't. So this is mainly for students who are like, what's that? Like, what is an LGBT pre-professional LGBT group? Like, what do they do? And what are the benefits of them? Even So we're going to kind of talk about. Mike has some experience with being at Penn. There's a group called Wharton Alliance. That's a pre-professional LGBT group. And I started something called Cornell Business Alliance at Cornell, and I could kind of talk about a little bit about what they do. And neither of us were, or I guess all of us were not in this group called OSTEM, but OSTEM is actually a very popular pre-professional organization on campuses as well, that if your campus doesn't have it, it might be an interesting thing to check out that you could start. I think they have really, really great resources to start that. So I guess, Mike, if you want to talk about your experience with the Wharton Alliance, how you even heard about it, what events, like how did it benefit you if it did at all?
Yeah, sure. So as Tim said, the Wharton Alliance was the LGBT pre-professional organization at Penn/Wharton. You didn't have to be in Wharton to be a part of it. It was just called the Wharton Alliance because it was business oriented. And it was basically just a way for LGBT students to come together and to not only discuss things like we're talking about now, just ways to be prepared for interviews or informational sessions, or to even just go about finding companies, but also as a main way for companies to engage with the LGBT population of the university. And so actually when I was at Deloitte Consulting, I was the diversity chair for Penn recruitment. And so my main way of reaching out to the LGBT community was to reach out to the Wharton Alliance. And so a lot of companies these days, they actually have LGBT-specific recruitment events where they'll set up a coffee chat, or where they'll set up a cocktail hour. Those are always fun. There are plenty of different opportunities for companies to throw something that is LGBT specific. I mean, some of them even host events at their offices just for LGBT candidates. And so being a part of these organizations is a way to find out about those things. And I would say, having attended a few of them myself while I was in college, they're so helpful. You get to ask normal questions, like what's it like to work at the company, what's it like to be in this role, everything that anybody would ask. But at the same time, you also get to meet LGBT people that currently work at the company. They tend to send LGBT delegates from the company for you to talk to, so you can actually ask more sensitive questions. So what's it like to be out in the workplace? What's it like to be LGBT in general? What type of support groups do they have within the company, if they do have support groups? Have you had any hardships, or is it all, roses and smiles? So I'm really glad that I was involved in the organization when I was in college. It was definitely very helpful when I was helping on the recruitment side when I was at Deloitte. And a lot of my friends have had similar experiences. Tim, do you want to talk about your experience at Cornell? Was it like mine?
Yeah. So actually, what I just remembered as you were talking was that just a few weeks ago, outforundergrad.org, we have a blog area, and there was actually a recent blog post about someone sharing about the Wharton Alliance experience, and anyone who wanted to start their organization, they have kind of the constitution laid out. It looks super formal, but I'm sure if you like kind of read through it, then you could find out that just guidelines on how to start your own organization there. So their big difference is, Penn is located in a city where they had those opportunities during the school year to kind of talk to different people within Philadelphia who were part of those affinity groups or support groups that Mike was talking about for these companies. So starting the Cornell one, it was really interesting because we weren't in a city, we were in Ithaca, so it was more of a gateway for people to talk about, share information, and so resources about anything we find when it comes to LGBT-specific recruiting events or even just networking events. So over the summer, I remember a lot of banks have this. So like Barclays had something, JP Morgan had like a Proud to Be Summit, I think, and Goldman Sachs had like another Pride Summit. These are like banks, but a lot of it was also just a way to share information and talk about like, oh hey, like these are some cool events that if you're in this city this summer, this hackathon's happening or this event's happening, and potentially you could talk to people who are part of these affinity groups, right? So for example, I know Facebook had like a lot of tech companies actually like march in Pride over the summer, so it's kind of like, oh hey, these are some articles that are interesting about these companies that are marching in Pride and what newspapers are saying about this, and it's just a great way to share resources and information, and of course like if it's a great way to share things about like out for undergrad, and a lot of people don't know about out for undergrad or like where to apply, when to apply, and it's a great way to, if you have a listserv of people who have the same interests, of sending out that information in one place. So OSEM is also, I think I mentioned that before, but OSEM is a different organization. They have a conference as well, a national conference, and they are a pre-professional group where I believe they have really great resources that it's great to start. So OSEM stands for, I believe, out in science, technology, engineering, math. So it's pretty broad, and if your school doesn't have it, then look into starting it. That could be a great way to connect with professors and companies and national OSEM organization and other students, and that might be a great way to also share those resources, like I mentioned before.
Yeah, and just one more thing. I think something that's really special about being involved in these organizations and being connected with organizations that tech companies or consulting or whatever firms you're looking at have is that you really do get more personalized attention. I think it was, I know this is for technology, but I recall BCG, I'm pretty sure, had kind of a pairing program where they actually paired LGBT applicants with LGBT employees, and they matched you with people so that you could do practice case interviews, and I'm sure that there are other companies that do things like that. So being involved in these organizations is not just about these events, it's also, it does go further than that and can be very helpful.
Cool. So if you're just joining us, I noticed that we have a few people who just joined us actually, and if you're just joining us, if you have any questions so far, we kind of just added some about either the course or about what we just discussed, then feel free to comment in the section where it says say something here under the live event on our O4U Google Plus page, and we'll definitely answer any questions.
Or if you just want to tell us how awesome we are, how excited you are to be here, we take that too. That's fine.
I'd like to plug the Association for Women in Computing and Grace Hopper for a second, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. That'd be great.
So when I was in college, I didn't participate in any LGBT organizations that were pre-professional. I did participate in some that were more social, but I was part of the Association of Women in Computing in my school, and it is a national group. Ours was kind of a spin-off organization, so it's just local. But it's been one of the best groups for my career and for just helping me in general. Like, I still hang out with people that I knew and went through college with from that group who now live in the same city that I do, 3,000 miles from where we started. So especially for women or people who identify closer to women or were assigned as female at birth, AWCs are really awesome, or any organization that is for women in computing. There's also a conference which is happening October 10th, 8th through 10th, which may conflict with OUTC. I'm not sure. It's called Grace Hopper. It's in Arizona this year. You can still register. It's awesome. Although, a grain of salt, when I went, there was a lot about having it all and being able to have children and a career. So much so that it was a little off-putting. Hopefully, it's not that focused on that anymore. Because I think it's important to have a diversity of issues covered within a conference, not just focusing on one. There is an LGBT lunch, which was really rad. So yeah, definitely check out Grace Hopper. And they do have funding to help people attend. I think you have to make a poster and apply. It's kind of like a scholarship. Some local university organizations also have funding. So my AWC was able to give me a little bit of money to help pay for tickets and hotel costs. And they have a giant career fair too, which is really nice.
Awesome. So we actually do have a few questions in. One from Billy. So I guess I'll start with this question. I'm starting an LGBT professional group on my campus for engineers and business students, and wanted to find out how to connect and find who are in diversity organizations, and what should I be talking about. Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, it sounds like that question is more about kind of like student recruitment and essentially just connecting to other organizations. So it is great. Like a lot of, I love it when I see a lot of different organizations on campus just collaborating and doing events together, because then it just shows that, you know, sharing resources and more students. So a good way to kind of approach this is, you know, of course, start with your LGBT center and send out listservs and kind of connect with people that way. It also is great to start with also some majors and kind of just posting things around. Come up with some sort of compelling content for your first meeting, not just like, hey, this is what we're all about, but more of, hey, this is an event that we're hosting, and this is why it's really cool that we're hosting this event. So, you know, it can be as simple as something like, I don't do like pizza or ice cream, I don't know, like do something a little bit more unique, but there are ways that you maybe you have a speaker come in, or maybe you might have a professor talk about, you know, a professor who may be out in the workplace, and they maybe can talk about like what it's like through academics. You know, it's just like very like trying to be creative and use your community within local community, not just college, but reach out to people and have some sort of compelling event. And it's actually interesting because you might get a lot of people who, you know, may not fit all under the categories, but it doesn't matter if they fit the categories of these LGBT groups, or if they're interested, or if they're already a certain major, right? And they might be like a anthropology major or minor, and be interested in what you're doing, right? So that's like a great way of just having some sort of compelling first event and starting that way. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Billy. I hope it does. If it doesn't, then just feel free to follow up with another question.
Yeah.
Did any of you two want to add anything to that?
A lot of times, a lot of universities have mentors or like advisors for students in a major, and those people are great resources for affiliated student groups, because it's their job to pay attention to those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great advice. Yeah.
And the only other, I don't know if this is part of the question, I think I missed half the question, but if you're trying to get companies involved, if you're trying to get engagement on that end, a lot of company websites actually have a diversity tab, and they talk about their different groups, and they have contact information. So you really can't just shoot them an email and say, hey, I've organized this group at this university. We're really interested in seeing if there's anything that we can do with you guys, and just get in contact there and start the conversation.
Yeah, that's really great. Okay, so second question from Acacia. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. Have you ever faced unexpected discrimination in the workplace, and how did you handle it?
Ooh.
This is interesting. I guess we weren't really talking about that because we were talking about, I guess, more on the lines of the LGBT student organizations, and but yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to address that one right now. This will be discussed at the conference.
Okay.
Not just this conference, but especially about discrimination, but also about the other great things about like why it's great to be out in the workplace, and and kind of like teaching moments, of kind of working with your coworkers and having teaching moments and how to handle those situations. I feel like it's kind of it's a whole other topic that we might have to answer another time, since we're kind of running out of time. But Acacia did.
Tobin, I think you had something to say.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I could answer that question, but we're not doing that. So let's move. Is there another question we could answer?
Here. Well, here, I'll give like a very, very quick answer. It's a very complicated issue, and we could talk about this for a full 30. We could talk about this for hours.
We do have the sessions just on various topics around this at OPER, Opera Undergrad, the tech conference, which will.
Oh, then okay. Then we're gonna table that. Look forward to the conference.
Actually, if it works out, how about Acacia? Tobin, you reach out to Acacia after this, and then you could talk one-on-one. Would that work?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Hope that's okay, Acacia. Yeah, and I guess let's see if we have any questions here. So Billy said, Billy says that they're starting a group, and they have success talking to student groups and faculty advisors. So that's awesome.
Awesome, Billy. That's great.
Okay. I guess that's it for tonight. Tobin, I'll give you Acacia's information so you can reach out to her, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you guys have any questions at any point. We're here to be engaged with you guys. So whether it's through the Facebook group or if you want to actually shoot us an email. Do they have our email addresses, Tim, Tobin? Do you know?
Yes.
Do we have a university program email address?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Let's use that one.
So if you have our contact information, feel free to shoot us an email or reach out to us on the Facebook group. We pay attention to that. And let us know if any other questions come up from Course 3.
Okay. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.